happens when your work bestie becomes your life partner? And how do you find new work besties when you step away from that corporate life and move into entrepreneurship? Well, today's guest, Clélia Castro-Malaspina, has navigated these transitions and more. So she was a former literary agent, and she's turned to an entrepreneur. And Clélia now runs her own editorial and consulting company called Mossy Pines Creative, and is the author of an upcoming book that we're super excited to preview and talk about. Stay tuned, because Clélia is going to drop some really powerful insights on finding connections in every stage of life.
Hi, I'm Claude.
And I'm Jess.
We are corporate employees by day, entrepreneurs by night, and work besties for life.
Join us as we explore how work besties lift each other up, laugh through the chaos, and thrive together in every industry. Work besties!
Welcome, Clélia. So
Hello.
happy to have you here. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes, I'm Clélia Castro-Malaspina. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. I am a former literary agent. I work in the children's book industry, but now I am a freelance editor, a consultant, and an author.
Do you ever sleep?
Well, I'm a mother of a 3-year-old, so the answer to that is no.
No.
That's how you do it all. Now I get it.
Yes. Adrenaline takes you pretty far in life.
It really does, especially during those ages.
For sure.
So, Clélia, you've got a lot for us to chat about. One of the things that I think is kind of unique that you don't hear often is how one of your original or early on work besties has now become your life partner.
That is true.
Would you mind sharing about that?
So my husband, Mike, and we met. So before I was a literary agent, I was actually a lawyer. I've had many chapters in life, but I was a lawyer for a few years. I didn't last very long. But my husband and I actually met first as interns at the law firm we eventually both worked at. So we were law students, and we both happened to go to law school in DC. The firm was in New York, and then we worked together in New York the first 2 years of our legal careers, the only 2 years of my legal career. And then we hit it off right away. We were friends, definitely friends first. We were both dating other people, sort of not interested in each other in that way, but we really just hit it off right away. I first met him in Union Station, which is in DC, waiting for the train to go to Philadelphia for the kickoff summer intern work event. It was in March of our second year of law school. And I was kind of looking around for someone who looked about my age in a suit, maybe looked law firmy. And so I went up to this guy. I was like, "Hey, are you here for the thing?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so we stood next to each other. We sat next to each other on the train, and we just started yapping. We had really similar sense of humor. And I was like, "Okay, this guy, he's funny. This is good." I was kind of nervous. It was my first real job. And I was like, this is going to be okay. And then that summer came around, and we were kind of like buddies the whole time. We always sat next to each other on the bus. I'd go to his office to chat. We'd kind of put our heads together on projects and stuff like that. There was a lot of events. We hung out at events a lot. Just thought each other were funny. We both were reading, the last Harry Potter came out that summer, and there are all these serious lawyers in New York. And then I remember we were the only two who were sort of just in our offices pretending to work, but just furiously reading the last Harry Potter and then talking about it. So that was a good sign. And then when we ended up working together for real about a year later, after we'd taken the bar exam and all that, I kind of realized, well, maybe we're such good friends for a reason. Mike was definitely sort of my bud, my main bud. And then it blossomed. Yeah.
Adorable. So do you think that working together had strengthened that bond?
For sure. I mean, especially, so we were summer associates and first year, second year associates in New York City in a corporate law firm in 2008 and 2009, when it was a crazy time to be in that situation. And it's a kind of notoriously difficult environment. And so you're kind of in the trenches together. It's we would be at the office till 10 p.m., sometimes midnight, and just having a bud there who understood what was going on, and to someone who could always make you laugh, even if people were being mean to you, stress was high, and you had a million things to do. It was great having that go-to person.
And did you become an item during that time or afterwards?
Oh no, we certainly did. And it was
Okay.
like this big secret for a while, though it was kind of annoying. Everyone was like, yeah, we knew you guys would get together, and which was like such an annoying comment because that for a long time I was like, no, he's just my friend. He's just my friend. He's just my friend. But then everyone else was right, I guess, and I was
Yeah.
wrong.
They saw
How
the
dare you?
connection as well.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I guess there was definitely like obvious sparks, but I thought it was like, no, we just have the same sense of humor. But it was more than that. I was wrong.
So you two then became together, and then you left and created a whole nother pivot in your
Yeah,
career.
so I totally pivoted. Well, actually, there is some overlap. I'd say I left my legal career. I'd say I left my career as a lawyer, but as a literary agent, and I did that for about 9 years. There is this whole contract negotiation element of it. But
Mhm.
basically, for those who don't know, what a literary agent does is they represent creators, writers, and illustrators too in my industry for children's books. And you basically work with them to develop their work and then you pitch it to publishers hoping to sell their work, and when you sell them you negotiate their contracts, and then you also kind of manage their career from then on in. So it's definitely like a multifaceted job. It was a cool job. It was a big pivot because I worked from this like big international law firm, where we'd have virtual meetings with the Hong Kong office, and there'd be like work happy hours and Christmas parties and weekly group meetings, monthly firm meetings, to like a company. At first it was just me and one other woman, and then it grew to three, and then it grew to four when I was there. And it was based in Seattle, but like mostly remote. And so that was like a totally big pivot. And I would say for the most part, I like that pivot, but one of the biggest challenges was that I am like inherently a very social person. When I was at the firm, I had a lot of friends, like hung out, was happy to sit at a lunch table to chat, going to people's office to visit, went to the happy hours, went to the events, always game for that sort of stuff. And to this day, I still remain good friends with some people I worked with 15 years ago there. So going to this situation where,
Hybrid or a remote situation. Yeah.
yeah, it was
How did
super
you
tough.
navigate getting that kind of social connection still?
I pretty much figured out that that was going to be a challenge for me right away. And so
Mm-hmm.
to me, it was like, how can I figure out ways to get that socialization in a job that's like not
Remote.
by design super social?
Yeah.
And so I came up with kind of like a plan that ended up working out. And then later on, when I started my own business, it's a business of one. I was able to employ that too, and it continue that. So basically, in a couple ways, right? So first, I did work with a few women, and we're all generally in the same area. And so even though we worked remotely, we would meet up periodically to have like a group lunch, whatever. One of the women who lived near me, we would meet up periodically at like a coffee shop just to like have someone to sit next to and chat with and do work next to for a while. I also made sure to just like every month I had to like go meet someone in person. So like
Mm.
people in your industry. So to me, there were publishing is a small industry in Seattle, which is where I live, but we all know each other, right? And most of us work by ourselves at home remotely. So it's an easy yes to get someone to come have coffee with you, come have lunch with you, because they're also sort of happy to see someone. Sort of like every month I have to like make a coffee or lunch date with someone, and I consider it networking, right? Even if
Mhm.
it's just a social call, but it's someone in your industry, you definitely always talk about industry stuff. So it's a networking thing. I also join groups that are associated with my industry. So in the children's book world, there's this awesome organization called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, which is creators who live in the area get together. It's a national organization, but it has local branches. And this branch, is wonderful. The Western Washington branch, they have events and meetups and stuff, and the people are all like minded, have the same interests, the same appreciations in life. So it's great to meet people that way. The other thing I do, I can't like work at the same desk like every day, right? I need to like change it up. So I have my coffee shops that I like that I base on vibes, right? If they're good vibes, you get to be one of my regular coffee shops. And sometimes you see the same people over and over again. And so a few years into me working remotely, I'd seen the same people. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to talk to these people and just like say hi. It'll be awkward, but like, and in the end, you kind of have like your coffee shop buddies.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll like lock eyes across the shop when something funny happens, or you know what I mean, or chat.
And
Like,
that
oh,
has like a complicated order comes in, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. So
You're
it's like,
back.
maybe, I'm a desperate woman and just making
Well,
friends
you know
with
what it's
strangers.
like?
But
It's probably like when you were in the corporate environment as your lawyer, you still had to work with the accounting team or you had to
yeah,
work with
sure.
the IT team, and you still have those connections even though you don't really see your work
Work.
together on the
Yeah.
same thing. So it's kind of
And
like
so
that.
did
Yeah.
you, so it's not like work besties, but coffee besties. So did you
Yeah,
make
sure. Well, I
some
mean, we are
coffee
just sitting there
besties?
doing work. It's our alternative workplace, I guess. But it's funny, you do like see the same people over and over again. And what's funny now is I in my new job, we also moved to a suburb of Seattle, so I had to find a whole new onslaught of good vibes coffee shops. But one of them randomly ended up being like this place where other kid books creators go to. I did not know,
Oh,
but like
Wow.
I was there a couple times and I'd be like, Rob? Kevin? Ellie? Like, it has become this place for whatever reason attracts that type of people. So that one's great to go to because you might just run into someone who you actually work with.
Work
already
with.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
that
that's
was
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah, and then the last thing I want to say, which I'm most proud of, is that you kind of like make your own group. In my author life, I really wanted to have the benefit of other writers looking at my work, critiquing my work. They're called critique groups are common with writers, and it's just you kind of like all put your heads together, read your stuff, give each other feedback, cheerleading. It's great. So I didn't have that, and so I put out a call for one through this organization, SCBWI, and was able to get a group of 5 writers together that we meet in person every Wednesday morning, the same coffee shop for 2 hours. I fully consider this a part of my job, but in the best possible way, and it has become such a absolute wonderful part of my life and my week, and these people were just like each other's cheerleaders. Our work has gotten better because of the time we spent together, and we're just also happy to have this group, and it was something that I came out of my need to have more work friends.
Socialization.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's incredible. That is a great, insight. And for people that are the same, working for their own to go, so to do this group, to build their own group.
yeah, I mean, I think, like, you'll find that people like spending time with people. I think it's, like, literally science of happiness, like, having personal
Hmm.
interactions with other people, like, gives you joy. Even
Yeah.
if it's, like, a medium interaction, it's better than being alone. So I think people would be really receptive and maybe are too shy or don't know how or whatever, so if you go out there and try and create something, like, people will come, you know? And
For sure.
it's a really
I think,
eclectic group. It's,
yeah,
like,
over time, you
super
probably built
eclectic.
that trust. So now you do
Yeah.
share more, maybe not even just the work
Totally,
related, but the personal stuff too. That's
for
kind of
sure. Yes, and it's like we have a baby boomer, Gen X, 3 millennials, like, coming from the east side, the west side. It's like it's a good group. Yeah.
that's a good hack.
A lot
Like,
of diversity. That is great because we always say also, with work besties, like a lot of time, you have this intergeneration friendship. So
Yes,
really
yes,
to
and
have a
there's
Gen
so
Z
much of that.
millennium,
yeah,
And I feel like work is a special place where you can actually have those intergenerational relationships, even though I had to sort of, like, make it on my own. Like, it is related to my work and part of my job,
well, it's related to your work. It's helping for all of you, I'm sure.
for
But it's
sure,
also probably a really good, almost like the equivalent of meditation, where you take that step back and appreciate what you're doing because you
sure.
have these other people to discuss it with.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's just like and we're all like trusted people in each other's lives now. Writing is inherently such a personal activity,
Hmm.
right? And so every week we're sharing really personal stuff and, helping each other make it better. There's so much frustration that comes with being an aspiring writer or aspiring author. And so, getting out those frustrations, coming up with strategies, tactics, sharing information, stuff like that. It's just been really wonderful. And, I've been in the industry for a long time, but some of the others haven't. And so, but I feel like I've taken something from all of them. Like, I feel like they probably think I can give a lot, but I feel like I've gotten from every single one of them. And it's been just a really positive experience.
It's amazing. You're all giving as much as you're taking.
Yeah, for sure. And we're all taking.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. But that's the whole point of
but
a relationship like
Yeah.
that. And work besties in general is meant to do that. It's the person that's going to challenge you, but also applaud you. So it's a
For
good,
sure, for sure.
good
And like the
symbiotic
nature
relationship.
of a critique group literally has the word critique inside of it. So there's some challenging, of it being like, this isn't good. And here's why. But like
Yeah,
said nicely.
right.
But
It's
that's what
humbling.
is important. Yeah, that's what is important when you trust. Again, I'm going back to the same jazz, but the trust, right? When you trust someone and you trust their point of view.
I would think, at least I know even in my industry, when I ask for critiques on some stuff, I take the feedback more readily from people that they know how to do it too. Because I feel
For
like,
sure.
right,
Yeah.
like the experience adds another layer to it as well. But yes, you also need to build that trust too, which is, it sounds like you guys did.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the group's been in existence for almost 2 years. So it's been great.
Wow.
Yeah. Every
Oh,
Wednesday.
that's all
And
just because you
are
like
you,
threw that out there.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
are
I'm
you
pretty proud
thinking
of it.
even to bring more people, or it's just that
So
little
we
group?
we started as a or are we no, we started as a 5 and then we brought in a 6th. We have 6 members.
Six now.
That she was a wonderful ad. I remember everyone was a little nervous at first,
For the
but she's
dynamic,
been
right?
wonderful. Yeah, yeah, because it felt like because we had a great thing going, right?
Yeah.
But then it was good, and also not everyone can come every week, so it's good to have. You're pretty much guaranteed to have like 3 seats filled, which makes for a good critique session. So that's good. I would say we are still open to other people, but we also meet in the middle of the week during the day, so you kind of you can't have a regular job if you're available at the time we're meeting.
You have to fit a certain persona to be able to do that, yeah,
Yeah,
or for
yeah.
certain job requirements. Wow, you've given us a lot of interesting tactics and unique opportunities then when you are an entrepreneur, work by yourself of how to kind of make those
Yeah.
connections.
Yeah. I think it would be unhealthy if I was just sitting alone by myself every day. I'm a mom, so I'm happy to be sitting at home a lot and like run and do the laundry, do this thing, that thing for my girls. But I think having that social part is super important for my mental health and has helped me so much in my career, just having these people enriching like the art that I do, the business that I do. Like it's been wonderful.
So I think that's a perfect segue. So you move from being a literary agent to now writing yourself. How
Yes.
did you move from that one to this?
Yes. So that's an interesting one. It's like I feel like I took baby steps towards getting here. So first, as a kid, I was one of these many people who dreamed of being a writer, especially children's books. And it's just like it always been a draw to me. I kept reading picture books even as like an adult. My old law firm was across from Grand Central Station, and there was this little bookstore named Postman Books in Grand Central. And when I was feeling like super stressed, I would just walk over to there and go to the kids book section and just like look at the picture books. I just find them like
That's so
calming.
beautiful.
And so when I pivoted, I was like, I'm for sure going into children's books. And so I started representing clients. And then I ghost wrote a book. And then I had my friend who's an agent also had a client who wanted to write a book, but she herself wasn't a writer. She had this nice platform and this great idea. And my agent knew that I had specialized in middle grade nonfiction and that I had ghost written this book. And she's like, you have the goods. You can do this. Why don't you just talk to this woman? Let's prepare the proposal. I think you can do this. And I was like, are you sure? And my agent to this day, Lily Garamani from Full Circle Literary Angel Woman, she was like, you can do this. You can do this. So I was like, okay. So then I talked to this woman, Allison Matuli, amazing woman, really hit it off. And then we ended up preparing this proposal for a kid's book about the First Amendment. Sold the book. And then Lily's like, so you're going to write it? I was like, okay. So then I started doing that. And then the project went off great. The book came out 2 years ago. It's called Your Freedom, Your Power, A Kid's Guide to the First Amendment. It got starred reviews, which is kind of a big deal in our industry, and was a really positive, wonderful experience. Really proud of that. So then I had co-authored a book. I went from representing, ghostwriting, co-authoring. And so now, standing on my own 2 feet, I decided to write a book on my own. And the other like passion I had since I was a kid was soccer, specifically women's soccer. I played as a kid. I was in high school when the 1999 World Cup happened, the whole like Mia Hamm, Brandy Chastain, and I was 16. I attended the opening match of the whole tournament with my friends, and it was like a watershed moment for me. It was like, I don't know, growing up in like the 80s and 90s, I was a sports girl, right? I have all these brothers, and I love like Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky and all these like larger than life athletes who were all men. And then I went to this stadium that was filled with girls. Everyone on the field was a woman, ponytail, sports bra, and it was just such an incredible experience. I felt my own power as a girl for one of the first times in my life. And it was so awesome. It was so celebratory, and it just stuck with me. And so and that just got me hooked on women's soccer forever, the US women's national team forever, and have been a fan ever since. So when it came time to writing my own book, again, my amazing agent Lily's like, got to write this book. You got to find a great topic. And I was like, what should I write about? What should I write about? And then it just hit me like there has not been like a book for teens about the whole history of women's soccer. So not just these women in 1999 and after the amazing equal pay fight that went down and Title IX, all that, but 100 years before that, 150 years before that, the sport had these incredible beginnings in the UK where women, the first women, these Victorian ladies, would to take off their corsets, put on these scandalizing pants, and they were literally chased off the field by men. Just like, but they went out there, just wanted to play, and they just defied all social norms at the time. And then there was this whole incredible history that happened from then, these first games in the 80s through to now. And so this book, it's called Girls with Goals, How Women's Soccer Took Over the World, is the first book in the children's and teen market that basically goes through the very, very beginnings of the sport till now. And it just celebrates all the amazing women and the amazing wins that they had throughout this whole thing. Like, people don't know that women's soccer was banned for 50 years in England. It was just not
What?
allowed.
Like in which years? Like when was it
So
banned?
the late 1920s until about the 1970s, or yeah,
Wow.
1971. And what happened was there was okay, how you guys have seen the movie A League of Their Own? How the women's team? Okay,
Yeah.
so take that, but make it World War One, put it in England, and it was with soccer. So all the men went to war. They left the factories.
So the
At the time,
women,
the women went to the factories, and at the
I want to
time,
see this movie. Like this
yes,
movie needs to be
agreed.
made.
My book's available for option. But so the men left to go to war. The women worked in the factories for the first time. And at the time, all these towns who love football, right? Their local teams were actually teams made from the people who worked at the factory. So the women were allowed to form these teams because it was a charitable venture. They were raising money for like the boys on the forefront of the war. And so that's why it was allowed. And out of these teams, this incredible team called Dick Kerr, and it was named after the factory, it was a Dick Kerr ammunition factory. And they were just this unstoppable, incredible team with these great personalities. And they would gather crowds of like 50,000 people. There's like, what? This was in the late 20s. And it kind of like pissed off the football association, the formal like men's football association, and then they issued a ban that no women were able to play in any stadium associated with the FA, which is all of them.
That
And
is
so
crazy.
that basically banned them from playing. That happened for 50 years. And so basically they got so incredibly popular, like they would make international news. They were beloved. It was called the first golden age of women's soccer. And then nothing, poof, nothing. And everyone forgot about it. You barely hear about it. And it was just
No.
like this incredible, incredible team that was so beloved. Um, and then basically women's soccer was resurrected in the 1970s with Title IX in the US. It basically awoke the sleeping giant of America. And then we became freaking awesome at soccer. And then all these other things happened. But the book kind of goes through all of it. And it's just women were told no every step of the way. And every single time they overcame it. They
Overcame it.
won every single time. So it's such a victorious, uplifting story. It can feel tough right now to be a girl or a woman,
Yeah.
and like to have something that's just so uplifting where women are like always the victors. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful story.
So I am a huge fan of soccer. I played it my whole
Awesome.
childhood.
Amazing.
I also have a memory. I was at that same game with Mia Hamm,
Wow.
and I actually got to meet her randomly once when I lived in Chicago.
Oh, I would.
To this day, it's
Amazing.
probably one of my absolute favorite meetings. And the poor woman, I went running up. No one was bothering her. I was the only one that was like,
dude, if
Instantly,
I
like,
saw
I
someone
hug
else
you.
where
Like, you're just so cool. Like, come
I
on.
think
So
that
yeah,
is a person where I would not be able to be cool in front of. Like, I would not be able to be cool in front of me. She just,
she's
like,
a
that's
very
too much
shy
for me. Yeah,
individual.
yeah, yeah, that's what I've read and seen, but
But
I think
very
I would be a huge dork around her.
Yeah, I was a very big dork. She was very kind because I've heard after the fact when I told people the story, they were like, "She does not like that type of stuff," and she said okay to the hug, and I hugged her like bear hug.
You
Wow,
totally
nice.
hug her?
I did. Well, I asked. I wasn't like just ran in, but
Yes.
which would not have been unlike me. No, I did ask. She was sitting there waiting, and it was pretty. It was a pretty empty bar. It wasn't like there was like lots of people around her. She
Yeah,
was very nice, but you could tell she didn't really want to chit chat.
sure, sure. Oh, that's cool.
But that was like the highlight of my life, like just being able to be in the presence of somebody that was so
Yeah.
monumental to women
I mean,
and empowering.
to
Yeah.
this day, when I see that, like, Julie Foudy will often be on commentate on sports, or
Yes.
Brandy Chastain or Brianna Scrape, I see them and I feel powerful. You know what I mean? Because they were so impactful to girls of my generation, young women of our generation, just like at the time, and it was just huge. Like their impact was just so huge, and I love that they're all kind of still out there doing their thing, like still
Yeah. And still
inspiring, and
supportive and still,
yeah,
yeah.
it's so cool.
And I love that with the book, I didn't even realize it's about the book. So I'm so excited to get my hands on a copy and read it to my daughter too. But the cool thing about it is like the history. I didn't know any of that stuff. So
Yeah, and like, maybe.
I don't even know where I would start to learn any of that. So it's so great that you're able to put that in front of people and kind of remind them,
Yeah, and I have to say, like, so
or even educate, not even remind, because I didn't
yeah,
know.
Mhm.
well, a lot of the research done was from these incredible academics. The number one main gal is this woman, Jean Williams, who's in the UK. But so women's history is so often unwritten,
Hmm.
unrecorded.
I mean,
And
it is called
so
history.
these historians had to like dig through old newspapers, church registers, just for like a mention of anything. And so hard to dig up that kind of history. So the first woman who really did it was this woman, Jean Williams, who's still around, still amazing. And then inspired all these other academics to start looking into their own region. So I mean, there's still a lot to uncover. Like I basically put in the book like the things that are out there, but there's still work being done, and I feel like there's going to be some more amazing stories that we learn, especially out of like South America, Africa, Asia. Like there's going to be some really cool stuff. I should mention the book is like super global in theme. It's the world's game, right? So
Mhm.
Hmm.
we really try to have that book reflected in the book, so we cover all the continents are in here, and we bring in as much of the love as possible in this book.
And are you looking to have it translated? Because if you think about it, soccer is the number one sport.
I mean, I think the publisher is really smart and really wanting to sell it in lots of territories. It's actually coming out in the UK with a slightly different title, How Women's Football Took Over the World, on 2 days later, May 8th. So it's definitely coming out in the US and UK, but I think there are plans to expand where it's coming out. And that would make me so, so, so proud.
So what kind of message do you want young girls, or even the parents of these young girls, to take away from this?
If you have a passion, if you have something that you love, like just go and do it. Find a way to do it. There will be people who tell you no, but there will be people who say yes, and there will also be other girls and women who feel the same way you do, and find them. Make it work, bestie. You know what I mean? In what you
Yeah.
love. Just like just if you love something, like no one can tell you not to do that. And just find a way. There's always a way. And these women always found a way, even when it was looking real bleak during that ban. They found a way, and now like look what women's soccer is today. It's an
Yeah.
absolute behemoth, and continuing to just bring so much joy and inspiration to
Yeah.
millions and millions and millions of people. And not just girls and women, men,
Hmm.
it's great, boys. It's great.
And especially together, right? It's that togetherness, again, that strength that those women were together to be able to show up.
100.
Sometimes we say women go against women, but no, women go together and really try to make the world better.
Yeah, 100%. And you hear over and over again from the players, we're just trying to make it better for the girls of
Future.
the future. From very early on in the sport, like we're just trying to lay the path. We're fighting for this now, not for us, but for them. there's a otherness to it. They're
Mhm.
not just thinking about themselves. There's a togetherness. It's beautiful. Yeah.
How can mentorship and those strong friendships that we are talking about, the work besties, how can they help young girls reach these goals?
Just don't forget about the girls, right? I just feel like there's so much of the world. I mean, we know this. So much of the world is created with for men and boys in mind, and just don't forget about them. Sometimes they need a specific kind of mentorship. Just there's a bit in Mia Hamm in the when they won the first World Cup. So their coach Tony DiCicco at the time, she said, "Coaches like men treat us like women." And what that meant was give us positive reinforcement. Don't just yell at us. Be aware of our like emotional state. You know what I mean? Like things like that. So just like catering how you treat people, how you mentor people with that in mind, that just what you do for the general population, what you do for men and boys isn't necessarily what the girl and women isn't necessarily how they will thrive best, and just
Yeah.
keep the girls in mind. Keep them in mind.
Yes. Yes, like the training, the tactics, the skills, potentially same, but the motivation, the encouragement, keep in mind the group. And it might not even be, to be fairly, fully transparent, the difference between male, female, but just the dynamics of the group working together
Yeah,
too.
for sure. Of course.
I love this. You have this book coming up with mention when it's launching and where people will be
Yeah,
able
so
to.
it's out May 6th in the US, and it's available just kind of like wherever books are available. Pre-orders are open now. And in the UK, it is coming out 2 days later on May 8th.
What's next on your horizon?
Yes. So I talked about my love of picture books, working on some picture books. I would love to do some more in the women's sports space. I mean, basketball right now, women's basketball right now is
Mm,
just on fire, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Yes.
amazing to watch. And I see a lot of parallels to the women's soccer rise. And it's just so cool to like be able to witness this again, right? And I'd love to do sort of like something in the basketball space for sure.
And they're going to have to do the equal pay too in basketball, right?
Yes, and luckily we have some ladies who paved the way on that.
yes.
Yes.
Still some work to come, but yes, it's
That's for
getting
sure.
better. So that's awesome. It sounds like you've got a lot coming up. We're excited for you. And now that you've given behind your evolution and some ideas for those that are also in a similar situation, do you have any advice for people considering a career pivot? Because you've done it a couple of
Yes,
times.
I have. I just think life has many chapters, and just because you decided to do this one thing when you were 22, 25, like doesn't mean you have to do that for the next 60 years. If you think of all the reasons why not to do something, you're not going to do something. Yes, obviously, especially if you have a family and stuff like that, like you have to think about weigh some of that stuff, but I also think just take that headfirst step into this new thing that you feel like could make you happy and go for it. I just feel like so often people don't have regrets when they make that kind of decision, and you only live once. And again, life has many chapters, so just time for a new one sometimes.
I think the way you said it is so smart. You usually don't have the regrets on the change, it's the
Yes.
regret for not doing it.
Yeah, for sure. For
So
sure.
people don't be scared
Yeah.
of making the jump.
Scrape together some courage.
Nothing but positivity will come from it. So, last question, how can our listeners follow you on your journey? Because it sounds like you got a lot coming up.
I got a lot coming up. Yes. So my business is Mossy Pines Creative, and I should mention I work with creators to kind of develop and edit their work. So my website is mossypinescreative.com on that. I'm also at cleliawrites.com. It actually all leads to the same website. And you can find me on Instagram at Mossy Pines Clélia, and there I post about what it's like being a writer and freelancer in the Pacific Northwest. I talk about kids' books if you're into that, and some of my work too.
Show notes for those that didn't get to quickly write that down, so you'll be able to click directly. Clélia, your journey and
Thank you.
so cool. From how
Thank
many
you.
pivots, you've forged your path, and yes, you
Yeah, I
have many
appreciate it.
chapters, and it sounds like you still have more chapters to come. In essence, if I could just wrap it up, it's almost like saying everything you're doing is all about empowering women. I mean, yes, the specific book that we just talked about, but
Yeah, I appreciate
everything.
you saying that.
I
Yeah,
think that it's such a great reminder that forge your path and find the people to support you because they're out there.
for sure.
So I guess
Absolutely.
that's my challenge to all you work besties out there. Going into a bookstore and maybe flipping through the books with the kids' pictures and finding other people doing it, or whatever your kind of niche is. Really create that book or that group of people that can be your sounding board. I think that is such a smart idea. You could do it in the corporate environment where you take 20, 30 minutes on a Zoom call that you connect and chat about what's going on with you, or do it live. Find your creative way to do that. So we challenge all of you to create that and share that story with us. What are your creative ways that you've created these unique groups of people and how you go about doing it and keeping it active? Let's keep that conversation going. We'd love to hear from all of our work besties, any empowering books they're currently reading themselves or even to their kids, and tag us at Work Besties Who Podcast. So if you've loved this episode, show us some love, like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review because it helps us provide you even more Work Bestie fun. Share this episode with your fellow book lovers, and please look out for Clélia and follow her. So until
Thanks,
next
everyone.
time. Remember, whether you're swapping snacks in the break room, rescuing each other from endless meetings, or just sending that perfectly timed meme, having a work bestie is like having your own personal hype squad.
So keep lifting each other up, laughing through the chaos, and of course, thriving. Until next time, stay positive, stay productive, and don't forget to keep supporting each other.